It's summer, it's hot, and we're going Tokyo rig fishing. So you've probably seen this rig for flipping, for dragging up shallow pre-spawn, but it's summer, it's hot, and these fish are out deep. Well, you can still use the Tokyo rig. You just gotta use it a little bit differently. And it's a super versatile rig too. There's a few things that I really like to do with it when I get out deep. Quick kind of history on the Tokyo rig. Basically, it's an offset shank hook with a little weight that dangles out the bottom. The way I like to describe it is a pre-rig drop shot. So your bait kind of suspends and has a lot of fluid movement when you're fishing it. But instead of tying up a leader, putting on that weight on the end, you can just make one knot and you got it right there. So there's two different retrieves that I really like for this. I look for kind of like a hard bottom, whether it's rock, gravel, shell, things along those lines, because that's what those bass relate to in the summer. Make a long cast, maybe use my electronics to kind of dial in their exact location, let it get down to the bottom, and here's where the retrieve kicks in. Since this bait is very free flowing, reminds me a lot of a wobble head. So one thing I like to do is I kind of keep that bait connected with the bottom with that weight, and I'll do a slow reel. And what's actually happening, we got a little Yamamoto bait on the back, a little creature bait. It's got these two little flappers on it. So what's happening is I'm reeling it, and you can almost imagine it like when you're fishing a swim jig or a wobble head, you know, it's kind of just kicking on the bottom, moving ever so slowly, but you're retaining a little bit of bottom contact, and that's really important in summer. But I'm just doing kind of a slow, sort of steady reel retrieve. This is a 7-2-1 reel. I got 15-pound test on it. And basically I'm looking for those fish that want to react, but maybe they won't react to your crankbait. You know, your spinner bait, your big swim bait when it's kind of clipping on through. The other retrieve, it's a little more nuanced, and this is probably a little more like what you'd imagine doing with a drop shot, is I'll still make that nice long cast, figure out where those fish are, drop it right past them. You always want to cast past those fish in summer and bring the bait to them, let it get to the bottom. But I'll actually just use my rod tip, and just like when you're fishing that drop shot, I'll just kind of shake it. Because basically what's happening is that bait is free floating on that split ring attached to that wire form. So you kind of want it to just kind of flap up and down, shake up and down. So I'll drag it ever so slowly, retaining bottom contact, and then I'll put a few of those little shakes in it, just like that. And basically what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to coax some of those fish that are a little less interested in something moving by them, and really just set it right down in front of them, and hopefully they go, because that's what we're looking for them to do. I have a 3/8 ounce monster bass tungsten on here, but 3/8, ½ ounce, even 3/4. You don't gotta go super heavy, but usually the comparison I make, if you throw a Texas rig in a certain weight to a certain deep spot, that's the bullet weight that you wanna use on your Tokyo rig. And one of the nicest parts about a Tokyo rig is it's very customizable. I can take this weight off, put on a bigger weight, put on a smaller weight, just gotta get out the pliers and do a little bit of wire bending. The other thing is, when it comes to baits, you know, you can use just about anything, but since it's summer, I want something that moves some water. You can see this has those flappers on it, a swim bait, something that's got some little kick to it to display some water and really move some things around. If the fish are real finicky, real weird with the hot water, maybe throw in a stick bait or something that you can shake a little bit more. But usually this time of year, I want something that moves a little bit more water, kicks around a little bit more, is a little bit more action oriented, if you will. Line wise, I really like going middle of the road. You know, you're fishing open water, you're fishing out deep, maybe there's a little bit of brush around, something along those lines, but you don't need your heavy line. You're not fishing shallow, heavy cover. I run 15-pound test. It's perfect for getting the bait down there, not inhibiting the action, because really for this Tokyo rig, that free floating action is hugely important, but it gives me enough stoutness. A lot of these big fish go deep, and that 15-pound test with a decent drag can handle them no problem. Rod wise, I want something a little bit longer, but not too stout. This is a 7.3 medium heavy. I can make bomb casts, man. It's long enough where I can just slang that thing out there, but it's got enough tips so that when I'm shaking this bait, it's just barely kind of shaking it, and it also has a nice little kind of moderate bend to it, so the bait really, or the rod really loads up when that fish bites it. Reel wise, I like a 7-2-1. It's just fast enough where I can pick up a lot of line, but at the same time, I don't over reel it if we're doing sort of a reeling or a swimming retrieve with the lure. I'm a firm believer that big bass in the summer, they go deep, and that's where this rig really shines. I can find a school on my graph, mark them, turn around with my spot lock, find them on the active target, and fire this thing, make a super long cast, drag it right through, and make the presentation that they're looking for, whether it's shaking the bait or dragging the bait or swimming it on through them. So next time you go out doing some summer fishing, targeting those offshore schools, grab yourself a Tokyo rig and catch some big bass.